Adventures in Wild Places, brought to you by GMC, 365 days a year.
Develop the tools of power. Modern man is driven by dreams of ever greater speed. In his search for adventure, a lone Australian, Ken Warby, inherits these tools developed for war in his quest to become the fastest man on water. Almost single-handedly, driven by a relentless obsession, Warby sets out to defy death, to harness and ride the back of his flaming jet boat beyond the 300-mile-per-hour barrier, the barrier which has killed all who have tried before. The obsession with speed, to compete, to win, to be the fastest, has driven many to risk life and limb. But the tools of power have almost always first been developed for war, and not always with success. Sometimes a new era has humble beginnings. American Robert Goddard, working with a small staff, develops the first successful rocket. Is ignored by his own government. It is not a serious weapon. At Hitler's secret research complex at Peenemünde, Dr. Werner von Braun guides a wartime effort to develop an ultimate weapon with which to bomb Britain. Failing at first to control their fiery beast, they perfect guidance and fuel systems, usher in a new generation of weapons, a new era of power and devastation. For warfare in the air, piston aircraft are perfected, push to greater speeds. But it is the development of the jet engine which holds the key to speed and power for aircraft. Built by the thousands, engines are ever improved. Jets push back the sound barrier. Perfecting technology, speed is doubled, doubled again, and again, Mach 2, Mach 3, and beyond. Man too is tested, pushed toward ever faster barriers. Can we survive? Now the mastery over speed and power takes the ultimate step, to leave the bonds of gravity, blasted deep into space, to circle the Earth and then return safely. Obtaining jet engines, English millionaire and speed enthusiast Donald Campbell brings his jet-powered hydroplane to a reservoir lake in Western Australia to set a new world record, 276 miles per hour. That record, set on New Year's Eve 1964, transformed a boyhood dream into a fanatical ambition for a young Australian, Ken Warby. Building speedboats since his early teens, Warby perfected his own designs, studied engineering, worked 16-hour days to finance his boats. Ever faster, each season, he put together a string of successes. But for super speed, it was Donald Campbell and his blazing jet-powered hydroplane. Having increased the engine thrust of his 12-year-old Bluebird K7, Campbell set out on January 4th, 1967 to shatter the 300-mile-per-hour goal on Loch Ness in northern Scotland. Hitting 297 on his first run, his return looked even faster, unofficially estimated at 320 miles per hour. Then disaster. Campbell's body was never recovered. Undaunted, Warby kept racing, kept his dream alive. Then a new challenger.
The Hustler, a jet boat rigged to challenge world speed records and make its owner-driver, Californian Lee Taylor, the fastest man afloat. The goal, the late Donald Campbell's official mark of 276.3 miles an hour, set in Australia in '64 with the turbojet craft Bluebird. Ready for the first run. Hustler almost does it, hitting 276 flat. Though short of the official record, Taylor remains confident he and his boat can even top the unofficial mark of 286. During these time trials, wind conditions were not ideal. Runs are made in both directions and averages fixed with wind and water speed canceled out. Hustler's day is yet to come.
I'll do 200 miles per hour on water, a magazine quoted Warby when he purchased his first jet engines as scrap metal from an Air Force disposal sale. Storing the Westinghouse J-34 engines in his backyard, Warby begins designing and building a new boat, his first with jet power. He recruits friends, all unpaid, from airline jet mechanics to university professors. Working from a small backyard garage, Warby turns his hand to any task which will earn money for boat construction. His quickly done oil landscapes and his wife's enthusiastic support keep the family going strong. Shrewdly exploiting his boast of 200 miles per hour, he displays his new boat, christened Spirit of Australia, at fairgrounds and shopping malls. But sponsor pressure and dwindling funds force him to make his first official runs before the boat is thoroughly tested. On June 2nd, 1974, Warby sets out to break the Australian record of 162 miles per hour. A local reporter questions him the day before the trials.
Well, the chances are always there, John. It's something you learn to live with when you're doing this sort of thing. They tell me it's about 50-50. as far as the record goes.
But isn't this, for a man with wife and family, isn't this some sort of madness to chance your life in a 50-50 way?
I don't think so. I think I'm going to be one of the lucky 50, not the unlucky 50. You know, we've got pretty good technical backup and a lot of practical experience. I think we can do it.
Starting a bit late in the day, light winds create a mild, choppy condition, but the boat seems to handle well on the first run. Warby knows design improvements are needed before Spirit of Australia will break the world record. On the second run, he does it. Spirit goes into the books. 166 miles per hour, a new Australian record.
Adventures in Wild Places will return in a moment.
That used to...
The 300-mile-per-hour barrier becomes his ultimate goal. He grows a beard, vows not to shave until that goal is achieved. To improve handling, a stabilizer is built and installed above the stern. To increase engine efficiency, Warby molds a fiberglass split-air scoop system designed to direct the inward rush of air past the head of the pilot into the engine intake chamber. This also encloses the cockpit to protect him in case of mishap. Having established himself as a winner, he finds a commercial sponsor. To test the improved design, Spirit is taken to the calm lake behind Blowering Dam, a 5-hour drive south of his home in Sydney. During test runs here in 1976 and early 1977, his own Australian record is increased from 166 to 193 miles per hour. Surrounded by family and friends, he begins a series of timed runs designed to increase the speed in stages as modifications are made. But there are still too many things to do. Never enough time to be fully prepared for each run.
There's always something to do. With these things, you've never got enough time. If we had another hour, we could obviously do more. If we had another week, we could do one hell of a lot more. But there's a record here today. There's no worries about that.
Seems to have a pretty good team around here.
I've got the best. There's no two ways about that. I've got a lot of really good, willing workers. No two ways about it.
And the conditions today?
Looking good.
It is very much a family affair. Among the spectators on the beach is Ken's mother. Well into her 70s, she hasn't missed a run yet. With sponsor support from an Australian retail chain, Fossey's, Warby hires Major Robert Apathy, an Army officer, to serve as project manager. Now he has a competent administration to run the tests while he concentrates on the boat and driving. Tail assembly working like a dream. Spirit comes screaming through the measured kilometer, straight and steady, looking good, no pitching. Spirit breaks 200, records 209 miles per hour. The return run looks even faster. There is no windscreen protecting Warby from the rush of air buffeting him. He must drive with one hand, holding his helmet and goggles in place with the other. Unbelievably, he clocks 221 miles per hour, not even going flat out. After the timed runs, a period is set aside for maintenance and design improvements. Warby installs a windscreen. This is one of the last modifications made to Spirit, and as usual, done in the backyard workshop of his Sydney home. But there is a nagging question. Will the engine develop the necessary thrust to break 300? Hearing of an American drag racer who has developed an afterburner for the J34 engine, he orders one.
Well, you could be looking at anything up to about 50% increase in power just by using this afterburner. Well, an afterburner is virtually only a new tailpipe, but inside the tailpipe we've got a couple of sets of burner rings, just like you'd have on a gas stove. What in fact happens, we've got some pipes on the side here that inject fuel into the burner rings and reheat the gas inside. There's quite a lot of unburned oxygen comes out of the jet engine, and we burn it in the tailpipe.
If this afterburner really works, then all of Warby's worries about lack of power are solved. The only other afterburners in Australia are used by the Air Force in fighter aircraft to boost them to supersonic speeds, and they are maintained by experts. For Warby, a self-taught jet mechanic, installing this super blowtorch in Spirit is truly playing with fire. Working alone, without the sophisticated equipment used by Air Force mechanics, Warby relies on his innovative seat-of-the-pants engineering skill to fit the only privately owned afterburner in Australia. But others do help. Working at an Air Force base near Blowering Dam, Warby plans to test the new system. Two days before the first official attempt on the world record, disaster strikes. The engine nearly explodes.
We were having problems getting fuel pressure on the afterburner, and what in fact had happened, we'd sheared the drive shaft. And while we were doing some test runs to try a few things, we didn't know the drive shaft was finished, it was broken. We were doing a full throttle run, and during the full throttle run, the screwdriver that was round beside the engine got sucked around and went straight down the front.
And what
we're now minus an engine.
The engine is useless. But there is still the second one lying under a plastic sheet in his backyard. It has been there 5 years, never used, but is his last hope. 3 volunteers jump into a truck and head back to Sydney, a 5-hour drive each way. Working all night, Warby and 2 Air Force mechanics pull out the damaged engine, prepare for the spare, due in the early hours of the morning. It is quite a change for Ken, working in a fully equipped hangar, the use of a crane, highly skilled technical help. No one slept for 48 hours.
I haven't let anyone down to date, and I'm damned if I'm going to let a bloody 6-inch screwdriver down the intake stop me from getting to Blowering Dam on time.
Replacement engine installed. They are ready to test as the sun sets. The engine ignites first try. It seems that 5 years in the backyard hasn't done it any harm. But it isn't meant to be that simple. While going into afterburner, he blows the fuel line.
Little fuel hose! Is it on fire? No.
There are no replacement hoses available for these scrap engines. Damaged parts are simply removed and replaced by new, fully tested stock parts. Lacking a replacement, he is forced to manufacture a hose and the proper fittings himself. late into the night, as the moon shimmers in the blast of hot exhaust gases, the engine ignites, but there is still no operating afterburner. Without sleep, with an untried engine, with the timers waiting, Ken feels the strain and expresses his frustration.
It's good enough for 250.
Oh, yeah, anyway. We'll be in your Australian record. We won't get a new world record. We'll just have to be satisfied, you know. There's no way we're getting a cool shaft from the United States overnight. Oh, well. That's what you call frustration and heartbreaking.
Adventure Places returns on the Discovery Channel.
Next morning, Warby arrives at the dam, exhausted but still with his sense of humor.
Tell you what, it was quite spectacular firing it up at night. Put a bit of flame in. Doing it by moonlight. Someone said, what's that glow on the hill? Is it a fire burning? And next minute the moon came up.
Yeah, I saw that. Saw that from Jim.
It was pretty spectacular.
An official time trial is serious business. Trained support and rescue crews are all volunteer, but carefully briefed. Rescue boats with radios are stationed along the course. Project manager Bob Apathy discusses the procedure should an accident occur. Each of the runs are coordinated through a control center which is in constant radio contact with Spirit of Australia and the support crews. Nothing will be left to chance. If there is an accident, it will be serious. No one knows this better than Ken Warby. Started by the ignition battery boat, Spirit is running smoothly. Conditions are good. The first attempt at the world record is underway.
Charlie 1, this is control.
Yes, control.
The Spirit has ignition and he's moving out onto the course now.
Roger, thank you. All stand by. Radio silence now. Radio silence now.
The run looks good, but there still seems to be something wrong.
Roger, Charlie 1, I'll go to Ken now. Roger, control Charlie 1.
Yeah, Charlie 1, control. Peter, before you lose him, ask him if he wants us to recover the duck for dinner.
Yeah, control, relay, Charlie 1 wants to know if he can recover the duck for dinner. There you go.
That's right.
Something's hit the rudder and pulled the back bracket out and pushed the top one in. So I reckon they saw a duck disappear under the bow, so it looks as though there's minced duck on the course.
In the last 48 hours, one engine destroyed, fuel line ruptured, 2 afterburner pumps failed, and now a duck is hit on the course. In typical fashion, the crew repairs the rudder. With speeds approaching 300 miles per hour, Warby discusses the danger.
That's something we've really got to play by ear as you go through it. You know, there's not too many people in the world alive today that can tell you what it's all about, really over 200. There's only one that's really alive that's gone faster, and that's Lee Taylor. And I don't think he's going to give any secrets away. And besides, his boat is totally different to this one, so he couldn't tell me much. So it's a matter of you go out there and do what you got to do, and just make sure you do it right.
High-speed test runs are a luxury that Spirit has never been afforded. The pressures of tight schedules has meant launching her only during the serious business of record breaking. World record trials must be timed by officials certified by the Union of International Motorboating, headquartered in Belgium. Australian Powerboat Association officials timed all of Ken's attempts. The rules require 2 runs in opposite directions over a measured kilometer course. Both runs must be made within 60 minutes, and the average of the 2 runs become the official speed. To break the world record of 285.21 miles per hour, Ken must better that speed by more than 0.75%. That means an average of the 2 runs of 287.5 or better. The rudder repaired. There is a slight chop running down the course. A world record seems out of the question, but he has promised his crew a new Australian record. There is a slight rolling motion of the boat called sponson walking. It does not seem to create a handling problem, and there's certainly nothing wrong with the old replacement engine. This is the fastest Spirit has run. At these speeds, there is only enough fuel in the tanks for one way. The refueling crew is waiting, ready to go.
I'm going out at 240 knots. So they're right alongside now. That's a speed of 245, Rob.
How was 245 mile an hour.
Terrific.
She looked good.
Just came out of the bottom end at 240 knots.
She takes on 60 gallons, just enough for a 1-minute run at full throttle. This keeps the boat light, increasing the speed potential.
Fred, especially you push that up sky first.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah. Oh, it's got a bit of clearance.
Yeah, I must have come out the bottom end of that course at 280 mile an hour then.
You can pump, start transferring. Now, when you came, just after you came to the view.
Still within the 60-minute timing period, it's down the course again, down the rippling 9 miles of Blowering Dam with the acceleration pedal flat on the floor. 245 miles per hour. Finally, Warby is able to answer the critics who scoffed at him when he launched Spirit over 3 years ago. It is a moment of jubilation. He has turned disaster into victory. Yet, the 300-mile-per-hour barrier remains unbroken. Still unfulfilled, still obsessed with his goal, Ken uses movie footage to analyze both his and the boat's performance. To reach 300 and beyond, Ken now enlists the aid of Professor Tom Fink, Australia's chief defense scientist and an expert in aerodynamics. Once a member of Donald Campbell's design team, he has studied how boats perform at high speeds. Fink had conducted wind tunnel tests on early models of Spirit. They make an excellent team. Warby, the practical self-taught idea man, guided by Tom Fink, the experienced academic.
Well, I went to Tom in the very early stages when we had the engine placed in the boat. we had to move the engine forward and do a few other things, and Tom was able, through his facilities and his knowledge, advise us on the aerodynamic additions that we had to do in the way of the tail plane and tail fin, and this has helped the boat considerably. Tom did the original wind tunnel tests on Bluebird, and with that sort of knowledge definitely rates him as probably the best man in the world at this stage, able to advise me on how to break world water speed records.
We've learnt enormous lessons from the Bluebird episode. In fact, it's not so much the lesson in the boat, I think, as the man, come to think of it. You know, in Ken we've got somebody who's going at the thing step by step and who's willing to take advice and who doesn't seem to require the showmanship aspect, which was a pretty important part of the Campbell episode.
Well, we've solved all major problems this time, no worries. Well, listen, we'll take it to 30%. Just leave it on idle for a while, check all systems. Alrighty, no, I'm ready when you are.
Okay.
You can have some starter power.
One guys, hold on to longer.
There is nothing wrong with the boat's design. What it needs is the extra power of the afterburner. Ken has 3 surplus drive shafts and a spare fuel pump flown in from the United States. The afterburner must be made to work. In order to reach 300 miles per hour, they must have that extra thrust. But it still will not fire. For Ken Warby, with a new attempt set in 3 days, fate seems to be playing too big a hand.
I think we've sheared another shaft. We were getting pressure, it was going well. It started to pop out the back, and we sheared a shaft.
Bloody frustrating for you, mate. You know, you must feel sometimes, wonder if it's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it, all right. We'll get there. It's just taking time, money and patience.
You've certainly got plenty of patience.
There's times when that wears a bit thin. And this is the last shaft. Well, the work's done. Fire when ready, chaps. Well, we're still having problems lighting the afterburner. We're having troubles getting pressure into the back rings. We could have sheared our last shaft, we're not sure.
And if you have, where does that leave you?
Well, if we've sheared our last shaft, we go to blowering without an afterburner again, and we'll just get well back up the dam and I'll let it fly.
Can you take out the record without the afterburner?
Yeah, I can do it.
Can you keep trying?
Oh, my word.
What's the plan for tomorrow?
Well, we'll come back and have a look at the system in daylight hours and see what we can do to repair it.
And it's blowing come what may on Saturday.
And we're going there, boots and all.
And it is boots and all without the afterburner. An incredible 265 miles per hour, but still 20 miles per hour slower than the world record. In desperation, they install the afterburner.
We're just fitting the afterburner out there now, Tom. The crew are working on it, but what worries me is if it doesn't work this afternoon and we have fuel pump problems with it, what are the alternatives that we've got to get some extra speed out of the boat with the conventional tailpipe?
I had a rough look at these figures earlier. I would say the biggest source of resistance is, of course, that rudder.
Yeah.
which is 2,420 pounds estimated at 300 miles an hour.
Well, we've got a ton dragging on the back of the boat just by that rudder.
That's right, and that's got another effect, of course. As you know, the moment of that pushes the nose in.
Yeah, well, that's a safety factor, as we discussed
right.
before. So if we're going to take some of that rudder off, we're going to take some of the load off the rudder, but we're also going to reduce our safety margin.
Always prepared to take a calculated risk, Warby decides to go ahead and shorten the rudder. Borrowing an oxygen-cutting torch from a nearby farmer, Warby works late into the night, dodging sparks. No one could find protective goggles.
I worked with one eye open and one eye closed, and I figured that if anything went wrong, at least I'd have one good eye to drive with.
Tom Fink has said to remove 2 inches. Ken takes an extra ½ inch for luck.
And that's 280.
It's 280 pounds per inch of rudder.
It's 280 miles an hour.
Oh, right.
If the previous speed was 260.
Right.
So it is really 20 more. Because it's 2.5 inches off.
Yeah.
Otherwise it would have been a bit less.
No, 20 mile an hour faster.
It's worth having, isn't it?
Well, I hope we're right.
Yeah.
Adventure.
Sunday, November 20th, 1977, dawns an overcast and windless day. Except for the waterfowl, the lake is still, like a sheet of glass over the entire surface. Perfect conditions to try for a new world record. It is also the last day of the year that Blowering Dam is available to the public. Signs posted in the nearby town of Tumut proclaim the great event. On the lake, Tom Fink and Bob Apathy must check the entire 9-mile course, remove twigs and small branches. The course must be completely free of debris. International rules also require a full safety check of the boat and all its equipment.
Good.
Course ready. Boat and life-saving gear checked. Now the countdown could begin.
Spirit to control.
Control, go ahead, Ken.
Control, what's the water conditions at the moment? An estimated leaving time, come back?
It's looking good, Ken. Bob gave me about 5 minutes, about a minute ago, so I'm expecting to hear from him very shortly.
That's a 10-4 control. Estimated leaving time, about 4 minutes.
On the first run, 290 miles per hour. Cutting off the end of the rudder is having the prescribed result. Along the banks, among the spectators, there is a tense expectancy. This could be it. Ken's mother reacts nervously.
Over there. Come on. See? He's made it, Ned. He's made it. Have he now? Come on.
We don't know yet. We've got to hear the results yet.
But you did tell me when you
That was
started.
only on the first leg. We've got to come back yet. Wait till I get the results. So come up to the truck while I get the results. Okay? Come on. Stop shaking. I'm supposed to be shaking, not you. Sit down, Sal. You'll be all right. Go and sit down in the car.
Sit on your knee.
Here.
There you are. Sit on your
You want to sit on me knee? I sat on yours often enough. Come on, go on. Sit around. Sit around.
He's big enough to hold you.
You're all right. Stop shaking. Now tell me another funny.
No, I'm dead serious. I wouldn't joke about that.
Well, tell them to make their bloody mind up if I've got to go back again.
276, yeah?
Then the radio reports he didn't do it.
Yeah, I believe that like hell. We'll fuel her up and we're coming back. Righto, fellas.
Unknown to Ken, a timing error had been made. He had actually exceeded the world record, but not by enough to claim it, missing by less than 1 mile per hour with an average speed of 286. Then it begins to rain. Would he be able to go again within the 60-minute time? The rain stops. Conditions are perfect. There is still time for his run. .2 miles per hour, the fastest official speed recorded anywhere in the world. Project 300 has been realized. But he still has a return run. It would have to be a fast one to achieve an average better than 287 miles per hour. Then it happens. A water skier's boat bursts across the lake, right through the course that Spirit has to travel. The course had been officially closed to the public. It's just unbelievable.
I knew that wash would still be there when I went back. I just couldn't afford to wait.
And he did hit that wash at over 250 miles per hour just before entering the measured kilometer. For a fraction of a second, he backed off. A fraction of a second that could cost him a world record. And then it was full on the throttle again. 277 miles per hour, an average of 288.6, a new world record. Ken Warby had achieved his boyhood dream. He was now the fastest man in the world on water. But there is one more record to set, an average speed greater than 300 miles per hour, the barrier no one had broken and lived to tell the tale. With full financial support from sportswear manufacturer Speedo, the engine has been completely rebuilt by the Australian Air Force. For the first time, The big Westinghouse jet is delivering full power. Now there is no need for an afterburner. Just a slight chop on the water. Spirit, full out, is sponson walking down the course at over 300 miles per hour, straight as an arrow and going like a rocket. .2 miles per hour, his fastest speed ever. This may be the day. After a quick refuel, it's back for the second run. There's real magic in the air today. Spirit of Australia has never looked or sounded better. 328.97 miles per hour, with a speed coming out of the measured kilometer of 345 miles per hour. The fastest speed man has ever traveled on water. Ken Warby has rewritten the record books.